The Cerebral Entertainment Podcast.
Hi. Think we're live, dude.
We're live?
If you want to call it live.
It's alive. I'm alive.
Live.
Well, welcome to yet another riveting edition of the Cerebral Entertainment Podcast. I am James, and with me as always is my good friend Colt.
Abso-freaking-lutely.
And with us today, I don't know where that came from.
Are you okay?
I don't know. Usually, a lot of times we have guests. Not usually here lately, but there for a while we had a stretch where we were having a lot of guests on, and I guess I'm just still in that mode. Mm-hmm. We had a cancellation last night due to some health problems in the family.
Yes.
And we were supposed to have some guests on, so maybe I just was ready for that, and my brain is catching up.
You've been prepping for a week for this.
It happens, yeah.
Yeah, and then we threw you a curveball.
It's okay. Life throws many curveballs.
It does.
And it behooves one to be prepared for such.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So before we hit record, you were talking about purchasing some disc golf baskets.
Yes, sir.
For the yard.
Yeah.
That I am intrigued and I am happy. Talk to me about this. What's the plan?
So at 7 o'clock last night, one of my nephews calls me and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" I'm like, sitting on my couch. He goes, "What do you think about me bringing a basket over and playing some disc golf?" I was like, "Sure." We've thrown around the idea of doing this for a while, buying a basket, and I've got plenty of land out here to be able to, throw like a legit par 3, something like that, So I go, all right, no big deal. And we had a freaking blast for like 3 hours. At least a good par 3, and I have a good couple of spots of concrete to use as tees to throw off of, and look up little creeks that are fun to throw in. I actually got to throw a new disc that I haven't got to throw yet, and it went straight in the creek, so that was neat. And then we got a dusk to dawn light right outside in the front yard, so even after it was dark, we just moved it there, and we putted, played some pig over and over and over again. Lots of fun, man.
Nice. I've seen the portable baskets, which is what I assume that you're going to purchase. I've seen those on Amazon, and I was like, yeah, that would be a good idea, because like even this summer I'm going camping, and I thought, man, I could just take my portable disc golf basket out there and do a little playing. Not real long distances, but where we camp at, there's usually a pretty big open spot because we go through the week. And so a lot of times there's not a lot of people in the, because we camp right next to the river, which is pretty much always pretty busy. But just across the gravel road on the other side, there's a pretty good sized field. And I'm thinking, man, nowadays it seems like a lot of things that I'm doing in life, I'm thinking, how can I fit this into disc golf? Right? Yeah. It's a thing.
It's exciting.
It is. And we just, when you find something fun like that, it tends to, you do that. It kind of changes your mind. It changes your perspective on things. You start thinking about that all the time. And that's kind of like what disc golf is for us right now. Because 90% of the time, no matter what's in my cart, there's something else related to disc golf, usually a disc, in that cart as well, and so it's just a thing. And will it slow down? Maybe eventually. I doubt I'm going to be this like on fire for disc golf forever, but I don't ever plan on stopping playing because it's just it's a fabulous game.
Well, you did really figure out the cardio aspect of it recently, right?
I did.
You actually went solo and played like 18 holes on your own. Or no, you said more than that, didn't you? You played a full round and then you threw in a few more holes.
I played 27 holes and then some.
Damn.
Because I got on the first hole and then would shoot that hole, then come around to number 9, shoot back down. Did that in a rectangle or whatever type of shape that is. Maybe an extra 4 or 5 times after I shot 27 holes.
Nice.
And so, but yeah, the cardio when you're by yourself is a little more significant because you just keep moving.
Right.
When it's me and you together, we stop, we talk, we wait for the other person to shoot, whoever's behind. So there's not quite as consistent, man. Yeah. When you're by yourself and you're just moving, especially when you're playing 27 plus holes, my legs were pretty shot. And I think that was the day after leg day too.
Ooh,
it was either the day or 2 days after our last leg day. And so I was feeling it, man, but it felt good. It felt like I got some cardio in. Like I walked maybe 7.5 miles.
Nice.
You know,
Yeah, I really think that like if you pick a day where you're fasting, I think that would be good cardio to do because it's fun. That kind of keeps you motivated to keep going, even though you may be a little tired because you haven't really eaten in like 24 hours.
yeah.
But not having anything in your stomach and just burning calories for a while, it's not a bad idea.
It's not. I just hope that I don't get so hungry that those bugs out there by the tree start looking too good. Because you know what I'm talking about, man. There's this one tree in particular, and there's several trees where this happens, but there's one in particular where it's just infested with these flying bugs.
It's the one right before Pride Rock, right? So the basket's normally behind the tree, but now it's like way up there. Is that what you're talking about?
I think the one I was thinking of was the one that's past that one. It's when you're coming back up toward the killer bees,
Oh, okay.
the live bees.
Okay.
That's where I was attacked.
Okay.
Coming back up that way before you shoot that one that I birdied
Gotcha.
the last time.
Okay.
I didn't know. They were swarming. I mean, I didn't know what I was going to do. So I literally took off running and waving, trying to swat the bugs with my disc. They turned into weapons of a sort for
Nice.
defensive purposes.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to look for trouble, but if trouble seeks me out, I will hit you with my disc. And that was the situation that I was in with those bugs. But no, yeah, the cardio aspect of disc golf it can be pretty formidable. Mm-hmm. It can be a thing, and so yet another reason to get out there and go shoot.
Yeah, for sure.
Go shoot with your friends. Go shoot by yourself. It's also a peaceful time.
Yeah.
Unless you're shooting terrible, and then there's a lot of loud cursing and yelling and throwing of things.
Right.
Other than discs.
Right.
Or maybe also disc in a bag, and
Yeah.
you need rocks or tree limbs that you can get a hold of.
Yeah. I mean, just the putting aspect is really nice to have a portable basket that you can just throw out in the yard. Because, I mean, you can play the 10 meters or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can play that easily.
Yeah.
It's, I wouldn't say practice makes perfect with disc golf, but practice makes pretty decent if you're putting every day. You know what I mean? Like over and over and over again.
Absolutely.
Just rep after rep after rep.
Yeah. Putting is one of those things that it looks a lot easier to me than what it actually is a lot of times, especially because, when they're designing these courses, they know what they're doing. Like, I'm going to put this basket right behind this freaking tree, right? Or this giant, huge bush, or both. Mm-hmm. Be several trees, like, hole 10 at the course we play at the most. That's a terrible, terrible place for a basket. But they do that on purpose, obviously.
Right.
And there's a lot of places where, my hole where I tend to par every time, where they keep, they've got the basket back there, and there's plenty of room around the trees, but the tree limbs hang low. So you've got like, maybe a 5-foot top ceiling that you've got to get under to even get to the basket.
Right.
That's cruel, but I get it. It's part of the game.
It's neat for like learning approach and stuff like that, though, because you have a spot it's not easy to just land a disc in a certain spot. Like you have a certain window of area where you want to be away from the limbs, but not behind a tree. And it's like 4 trees that are surrounding this thing. So you're trying to land it in a certain spot.
Yes.
It's not easy to do with a disc, especially because you can't control. I mean, I guess if you're a professional or you're somebody that's really good at disc golf, you can control a little bit or use the right disc to where it's not going to roll very much or anything like that. But you're not going to be able to control all of your, everything that the disc is going to do once it leaves your hand. So
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially if you're me. Like once it leaves my hand,
it's hard to tell what's going to happen.
It's in God's hands, man. Now I got to let it go. I try to steer it with my mind. I know you do with your words sometimes. You're like, go left.
And it never listens.
And then you end up saying it didn't go, what do you say, lefty or enough?
Lefter.
Lefter. Yeah, go lefter. Go lefter. Mm-hmm. But you still try, and maybe one of these days you will master that Jedi type of control of your disc once it leaves your hand.
Probably banned in tournament.
Jedi powers?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right, but they keep making these rules.
I know. Rules are for suckers.
Ruins the game, if you ask me. But anyway, love the disc golf. And waiting for a new bag to come in so I can store.
Oh, you got it ordered?
Yeah, so I can store more gifts.
Gifts?
Yeah, I don't know. It is a gift.
Right? Are we playing together soon? I love gifts.
Well, you've got to earn the gifts, though. No, order more or hold more discs.
Did you get the Trooper?
I didn't.
No, okay.
I didn't. I got something somewhat similar.
Okay.
I went with a little bit of a cheaper version.
Gotcha. Okay.
So Yeah, it looks like a decent bag. I forget what it's called now. It's got maybe it's called Disc Kings or something. I don't remember. I remember what the emblem looks
Is that
like.
two
but
Ds?
I don't think it's dynamic discs.
Oh, okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't remember. I'll have to, because it wasn't a familiar name to me.
Okay.
I got to be honest with you. I went with it because it was a little bit of a lower price.
I get it.
For now, because once again, I'm still brand new and I'm probably going to wear the dog crap out of this bag. So
There you go.
just chilling with it for right now. But I need something bigger. I appreciate the bag, the hand-me-down that you handed down to me. It's working, but I'm already outgrowing the number of discs I have. Won't fit in there.
Gotcha.
So I just need something bigger for right now. I'm not looking for anything fancy.
So earlier when I was looking for my basket, I was scrolling through Amazon, and I felt like a moron because I start scrolling through, and all of a sudden these bags start popping up. Well, the trooper bags like I have. I didn't know that the top zipper on the bag was actually for putters. I've just been using it for like storage of things. Like I put a Bluetooth speaker in there and my
Nice.
keys and other stuff like that. Well, because the whole bottom part of the bag is all for discs, right?
Yeah.
Apparently that's all for like drivers and mid ranges and stuff like that. Then you can fit like 4 putters up in the top. So I'm sitting back here in the podcast room and I see this and what do? I instantly stand up. I run to the kitchen or the dining room where my bag is at, and I take my putters out of that and put them in the top bag.
Immediately.
I had to.
Yeah, you had to fix this.
I was like, I can't let anybody see that I'm putting a Bluetooth speaker in the putter hole. I can't do that.
Okay, but my question is, now do you have a place for your speaker and your keys?
No, I'm going to
See?
figure something out with that.
So I don't know. I might. I don't know if I would make the change.
I wonder if there's disc golf bags that are Bluetooth capable. If not, there should be.
There should be.
Uh-huh.
They should be. I'm not sure, but if it's not happened yet, it should happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sure there's probably somebody listening right now as we speak, since we're all being spied on. It's going to make that happen now. So
Okay.
once it pops up on the market, we'll give you props.
Okay.
Officially.
No, they won't.
No, we will.
Oh, we will.
Yeah,
Okay,
you and I.
Because that matters, yeah.
Well,
All the money goes to whoever made it, but I get it.
Still, man. I mean, we're gonna act like they don't exist.
Okay.
And it's just going to be your idea. And it leaked out because we were talking about it, and Google's always listening. So,
Yes.
and there's somebody monitoring that. There has to be.
It's true.
So,
I'm anxious to see what kind of ads I get for. I said putter hole. I'm sure that's going to bring up
oh
something
boy,
weird.
yeah. You got to watch what you say nowadays.
Uh-huh.
There's no telling what kind of ads you're going to get. I tell you what, as far as ads go, like on Facebook, Wish. Have you seen some of these Wish ads?
Some weird stuff, right?
Dude, they're like perverted, like big time.
Oh yeah, I have seen some of those. They're like what is that? There's one that pops up a lot. It's like something boutique or something like that, I think. But it's like, I mean, women in like skimpy stuff.
Yeah.
I've never searched anything like that.
Samesies, but Wish, they put it all out there. I mean, granted, it's a drawing, but it shows a, well-formulated vagina, I guess we could say.
Really?
Because there's this contraption. I don't remember which one this was doing. Some of them squeeze it closed. Some of them keep it open. This is on Wish. I don't know why. Why are we doing this on Facebook where I guess you have to be at least 14, but my goodness. When I was 14, if I had Facebook and I saw a Wish ad, I'd have kept that. I'd have screenshotted it for sure. But there's all kinds of crap, just stuff that doesn't even make sense. There's just one. I don't know if I sent it to you or not, but it's a giant dickhead, and it's a mask, but it stands about this tall over your head, and it looks like the head and then some of the foreskin of a penis.
Why?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I have no idea. It's coming from China, so I don't know what they're thinking over there.
Weird.
Why are they putting all that stuff out there, especially just like on Facebook ads? I'm surprised. Zuck, where you at? Where you at here, Zuck? You need to Facebook jail Wish because they're perverted and they're putting some shit on there that I don't think it passes your standards there, buddy.
Are you getting entertainment out of seeing these things, though?
I'd be lying if I said no.
I'm wondering why you're screaming at Zuck whenever you're like, stop giving me entertainment.
I think the point is the hypocrisy more than anything.
I get it, yeah.
And also because there are, kids on Facebook. 14 is still a kid, 15 is still a kid. My kids, of course, my daughter's 12. She's not old enough for Facebook yet. But when she's 14, I don't want her seeing a big dickhead on there.
Right.
Like that. Or some kind of a woman part manager of some kind.
Have you That's an interesting question. Have you thought about, which I know you kind of have the lockdown on your kids' phones and stuff as far as apps go and stuff like that, but have you thought about like the bigger apps like Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, a certain age that you're trying to wait for or anything like that? Or
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good question.
because I mean, at a certain point, they kind of have to navigate. You kind of have to let them navigate
Yeah.
their own way through.
Yeah, that's right.
But you can't really monitor Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that, right?
Well,
Unless you were like
The short-
every person that you friend, I have to see it before you accept it and stuff like that. But
yeah, and they're still. I mean, if they're going to be able to get around it if they want
Yeah,
to. You
for
know,
sure.
I was a kid once, and it just so happens that I was a pretty sneaky kid, and so I know a lot of the tricks. You know, and I try to keep up with all the tricks of technology nowadays too. Like, there's a lot of stuff out there that you can fool others with. You know, whether it be apps that look like one thing but it's really something else, like a photo vault or something like that. There's you know, the Snapchat where the picture goes away, I guess. You know, which so if there's no evidence of it unless you screenshot it. Things like that I try to stay hip on. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head, but the only thing you can do as a parent is get your kid's phone every once in a while and look at it, and I'm all for that because it's my kid. You know, I wouldn't do it to anybody else's kid.
Right.
But that's my child.
Right.
And I can't monitor, like I can't look at my screen and see in real time what she's looking at, what she's doing. As far as I know, there's no technology for that I can possess.
Right.
So what I have to do is I have to procure the phone. I have to get the phone myself and go through it and just kind of do a pretty kind of a broad sweep, but if I see anything that might possibly be a red flag, I dive into it.
Okay.
And I also talk to her a lot about it, though. It's funny you mentioned that, and I'll get back to the age in just a minute because I do have an idea, but it might not be what you're thinking. So yesterday, Kayla went with her friends. My daughter went with her friends to I guess South County. Maybe they went to the mall or something like that. They went up there somewhere with her friend and her friend's mom and I think her dad, whatever. Anyway, she went up there and she got back and she told me these stories about how some of the people up there creeped her out. Like, there's this one lady that seemed to be following them and things like that. I don't know if it's actually true, but I'm glad they're at least watching. I'd rather they be a little bit more paranoid than aloof.
Yeah.
But they came home and they started telling me about how yesterday was supposedly National Rape Day. Okay, so this was this thing that was propagated on TikTok, which I do allow my daughter to TikTok. I don't allow her to post anything, but she can view it and follow it. And she, as far as I know, keeps me abreast of these things, and so I allow it. So apparently this was a hoax, because I think it was either this past week, or just yesterday was Sexual Assault Awareness Day or week, whichever is the case, right? So somebody on TikTok did this hoax where they said yesterday, April 24th, was National Rape Day. And so it was kind of like the purge, as they were saying on this post, that it was okay, you could go rape somebody and not suffer any consequences. You get a freebie for going out and raping people yesterday. Although this was a hoax, it's a dangerous one, right? Because kids out there, or let's roll back. If there are people out there who are susceptible to this kind of hoax and they go out and they sexually assault someone, then that's a big problem, because it was in fact propagated on social media. It was a hoax, but people could take it seriously. Yeah. And also kids know about this. And so, you know, I'm glad, but also my 12-year-old knows what rape is. You know,
yeah.
I'm glad that she's being aware. And when she came home and, they were talking about it, and I said, because I was really worried about her going anyway. I'm pretty protective. I'm not a helicopter parent per se, but I worry a lot about my girls, about my girl and my boy. And when I say girls, her friend is like my girl too.
Right.
So, but when she came home and they were talking about it, she's like, well, Dad, I don't like talking to you about this because I know that you're just going to say, well, see, that's why I worry so much, and yada, yada. I said, well, sis, I'm going to worry about you. You know, I'm your dad and you're my world, and I'm going to do everything I can to protect you without, chaining you to the basement and not letting you out until you're 27.
Yeah.
At least, which is sometimes that's what, minus the chains. I wish I could just keep on to her until she was 27. But
well, before you move on though, that tells me though that you're doing a good thing, because like her saying that means that your voice is in the back of her head.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like she don't want to talk to you about it because she knows you're going to say this. That means that she knows in a scenario or in a situation, she's got you in the back of her head saying, "This is why I worry. This is why I worry."
Yeah.
You know, so that's a good thing. It means you're doing a good job.
I hope so. You
Yeah.
know, I hope that the net result is definitely positive.
Yeah.
You know, I hope that she's recognizing things, recognizing situations. I don't want her to be scared to walk out of the door.
Right.
You know, I don't want her to be scared of the world, but I want her to understand and be cautious of the dangers that are out there and to mitigate those by making wise choices.
Yeah.
You know, and wise choices include staying with your friends when you're at the store, making sure your phone is charged. It drives me insane. She lets her phone go dead and I can't get a hold of her.
Yeah.
And I know what happens when it happens because it goes straight to voicemail or the text won't go through. Drives me up a wall, and I'm on her all the time. Charge your phone, charge your phone, charge your phone. That's another thing I want in the back of her head, so she always has her phone charged. Because if it dies, she needs help. What are you going to do?
Right.
You know, how's it going to happen? So at any rate, I told her, though, basically what you were saying, I just said, it's okay for me to worry, but it's also good for us to talk about it. I want you to tell me everything like that, because that lets me know that you are paying attention.
Yeah.
If you don't, verbalize those things, it makes me worry more because I don't know if you're paying attention to those things. I don't know if my voice is getting through to you.
Right.
And that's concerning,
Mm-hmm.
And so I've got a really good relationship with my 12-year-old right now, and I've always pretty much had a good relationship with her, but she's really starting to mature mentally in a way. Psychologically, she's really starting to put a lot of two and two together. And it's very interesting. It's very... a proud daddy moment, I guess, but it's very interesting to see her starting to put these things together and the kind of talks that we have. She's not a little kid anymore in a way.
Yeah.
She still is. She's always be my baby, but she's like, her logic is really starting to develop. And it's just very cool to look in her eyes and have those conversations and see those things, because I can tell that she's becoming more empathetic. So she's putting herself in a way, even though she might not be formulating it the way that I'm verbalizing it, but in a way she's putting herself in my shoes because she doesn't want Dad to worry, you know? And so she's going down the list a lot of times. Dad, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, without me having to say those things because she knows that's what's coming.
Right.
But she wants to tell me that because she doesn't want me to worry.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So I forget how we got on this track, but...
the age for social media.
Thank you. That was the main point anyway. I don't think there is a set age. I think 14 is such an arbitrary number. I guess if you're Facebook, you have to have a number. I think it depends on the child. It depends on their developmental stage, basically, as opposed to their chronological age, right? Mm-hmm. How mature they are for 14, 15, 16. And you have to gauge that individually. You can't do that with a broad stroke.
Well, have you had any of the scenarios yet where, I guess it's like the stereotypical thing, but it's like, your daughter comes home and says, "Hey, can I do this?" And you say no, and they're like, "Well, but so-and-so gets to do it, and they're my age, they're in my grade," or something like that. Have you had to deal with any of that yet?
Oh, yeah.
And is social media part of that? Is there people in her grade or anything that has social media yet, or anything like that?
I think we've probably... I think we've had that conversation before. It's been a while.
Gotcha.
Because
that just, to me, I mean, I'm not a parent yet, but that's kind of scary when it comes to that, because if you tell your kid no, but they know that other kids around them are doing it like the same age, or and that's just a broad statement, like on anything. It doesn't have to be social media; it can be anything. But like if all their friends are doing it, but the parent says no, that's when like rebellion kind of starts, right? Because it's like, well, everybody around me else around me is doing it. I should be able to do it too, regardless if my parent says yes or no.
Yeah. And
then that's when you got to worry more, right? Because you're like, well, are they going to try to go do it even though I said no?
It's interesting you bring up this point because we were gearing up to talk with the Talking Dads, the podcast. We're going to have them on as guests, and I was wanting to have some parenting points from a dad's point of view to talk about with them, and this was one of them. The fine line that we walk when we're giving our kids direction, especially when they're at this age, because at ages 0 through, I don't know, depending on it's individual, like once again per the child, but we'll just say roughly ages 0 through 11 in this case, because I'll use my daughter as an example. We can pretty much just put your foot down. You know, it's not good to say because I said so. I mean, you should always be educating your child as to the logic behind what the rules that you're making or the guidelines you're setting forth, whatever. Their understanding is limited though, and so you use logic as much as possible. But at the end of the day, I'm your parent. You need to do this because I'm taking care of you. And now, go over there or something, or come over here, whatever the case is. But this conversation is not going to go on because now you're just whining, and I've got to shut you down, right? Because it's not productive conversation. So you've got to gear that kind of conversation toward that individual. But it's a fine line that we walk when they start putting logic together, because like you said, if you say things like, and these were some of the exact lines that I had made in my notes, because I'm your parent and I said so, or if you say something like, as long as you live under my roof, you're going to obey my rules. What kind of like response do you think might develop in that child's head if you use the line, while you live in my house, you follow my rules?
Well, they're not thinking about the follow my rules part. They're only thinking about the beginning. If you're living in my house. So now it's the automatic, well, I got to find out a way. If I want to do what I want to do, then I can't live under your roof. Yeah.
So what it says to me is, as soon as I can, just as soon as I can possibly do it, I'm going to find a way to get out from under Dad's roof, because I don't like his rules.
Right.
And I don't want that. I want my kids to leave when they're ready. I don't want them to leave before that just because they want to get out and do whatever they want to do,
Right.
The other statement that that I had noted, I had to look it up here really quickly. And this goes for kids of all ages. This doesn't come like when they start getting their logic developed more. This happens anytime, and you've got to be careful with. And I caught myself saying it one time, and I thought, because I remember, like I said, I was a sneaky kid, right? And so I would find loopholes. And that's what kids will do if they think about it. The statement is, don't let me catch you doing that again.
Right.
What does that tell the kid?
Right. Don't let me catch you. That's it.
As long as I don't get caught, then it's going to be okay. I'm going to get through with it, right?
Yeah. Right.
So, or don't let me hear you say that again, or whatever it is.
Right.
Whatever you can say that makes them think that as long as you don't see them, hear them, whatever the case may be, then as long as they don't get caught, they're going to get by with it.
Right.
That's dangerous, right?
Yeah.
I want my kids to tell me everything, and I want them to be comfortable in whatever it is they're doing, because both my kids, my son is 9, they have come across things on social media. My boy loves YouTube, but he goes down those rabbit holes that we talked about in previous episodes. And there's a lot of bad language and just weird stuff. Man, there's weird stuff out there. It seems psychologically detrimental. And I don't know who's doing this, but I have to have a talk with him. I'm like, son, you can't, because what he tries to do is just that. He's like, I'll say, you can't listen to that's got bad words, or I don't like the way that's, that doesn't sound good, or whatever I'm saying to him. So he says, okay. He doesn't argue. He says, okay, take it, and he'll go off in the other room and try to watch it. And it took me maybe a second to catch up with that, but once I did, and his mom does the same thing, we're like, no, that's not what I said. What I said was, you can't watch it. You shouldn't be watching it. Doesn't mean that you should watch it as long as Mom and Dad isn't around. So you had to explain that to him.
Gotcha.
You got to watch out for those little loopholes that kids have, man.
Yeah,
it's constant.
So like in that, it's almost like he thinks you're saying to you those are bad words, or to you don't like what is on there. So he's like, okay, well, I'll just go watch it in another room.
Right.
Because you don't like it.
and he's very like nonchalant. He's like, okay. And he gets up and tries to walk in the other room. But we know his game now. It's like, no, you can't watch that. You can't watch that. Doesn't matter what room you're in or what you're hiding under, because he tries to hide sometimes too under the blankets or something. Turn it down low. So you've always got to be on guard for the loopholes. And a lot of times it's what we say as parents.
Yeah.
Which is, it's very interesting. And I've really been putting a lot of effort into not just the rules and guidelines I'm setting forth, but how I present them and what it's actually saying to the child.
Yeah.
Not just because there's a lot of times there's a, what am I looking for? There's a gap. There's an understanding gap. We'll just call it that, of how they are translating what we're saying. And it's something that we need to be aware of, because you have to watch the child's response in order to really gauge what it is that they're hearing versus what you're actually saying, know. And so you've got to make sure that what they're perceiving, I think a perception gap is a good word for it, what they're actually perceiving is online. So how do you do that? Well, you get the child to kind of summarize it back to you, not word for word. They need to summarize it in their own words, paraphrase back to you, because that shows their understanding of the translation from you to them and then back to you. So you got to get in that kind of that feedback loop to make sure that everybody's thinking the same thing.
But then also, like, this might sound bad to say it, to do this, but like, if you do that, then now you know that. So if you tell your kid something and you have them basically tell you it back to them, tell what you just said back to you in their own way, now you understand that they understand it. Mm-hmm. So if they go against that, then they did it on purpose. You know what I mean? Like, they understood what you were putting out there.
Yeah.
So now they're just doing it in being disobedient about it.
Yes.
I mean, I guess you can punish them for that and still just try to beat it into their head that, you know, this is why we don't do that, or this is why we do this, or whatever. Mm-hmm. But at least at that point, there's no gray area where you don't think in your own head that maybe I didn't explain this well enough, or maybe I didn't let them know somehow that this is what they need to do or need to not do. Mm-hmm. So at least, and it sounds bad, but at least at that point, you know, they're just being disobedient on purpose.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. You want, and that's where you want to be, though, because I don't even think you worry about it that it's in your own head. I think that's probably, from what I have determined when I kind of analyze my own parenting, I have determined in some situations when the conversation came back around that my child really didn't get what I was telling them. They didn't understand. And so I always try to, kind of develop that feedback loop so that I know that they're on the same page as me. Mm-hmm. Because you got to get down to brass tacks. You need to close that gap first and foremost. Because if you don't, then you can't really expect them to follow the guidelines, and because they don't understand, and you got to make sure you try to close those loops or those loopholes too,
right?
Because those are killer, man. I used the hell out of them when I was a kid, all the time.
Yeah, I
would try to get around lies by just shading enough to where I could still say, but this part was true, or this was. I didn't tell you that I didn't do something. I would evade. I would use misdirection. A lot of different tools that you can use if you're trying to be a good liar without actually having to lie, right, quote unquote. But then I was redirected at one point and said I was still being dishonest because I wasn't telling the truth. There's a truth here, and you weren't saying it. Therefore, you're still being dishonest, even if you're trying to use that loophole that you didn't lie.
Right.
I stuck to the loophole. I stayed in that gray area for the time being. But
yeah,
I know to watch out for those things because I was a child once, and like I said, I was a child that I wasn't causing massive amounts of mayhem or anything. I was a pretty good kid for the most part, but I was sneaky.
Right.
When I wanted to do something, I would sneak around and find ways to do it.
But you've also realized that makes you a better parent now too, right?
Right.
Because you know how you used to be,
mm-hmm,
and I guess you probably still are somewhat, but
yeah,
you're sneaky. You're a sneaky guy.
Yeah, I guess. I try to be sneaky in a good way now, though.
Yeah.
But you're exactly right, though, and that's all. We can do that in life with a lot of different ways, using our experience, even though it was a negative experience in some ways, not our fault, or if it was a negative experience in ways that was our fault, mm-hmm, because we had some character traits that, were shaded a little negative or a lot negative, or, being sneaky, something like that. Because I know my son pretty well because I see him and the way he thinks, and I can relate to it. We don't think, all the way alike because he has a lot different interests than what I had when I was 9, as far as his, leisure time and things like that. But I'm on him, though. He's on my radar because I get how his mind does work, how he puts things together in a lot of ways. And so I'm always kind of trying to track that, right, so that I'm up on his games.
Yeah.
Kids play games. It's just kids. They're learning, right? I mean, we all kind of play games. Life is, as far as psychologically goes, life is kind of a big game, Mm-hmm. We always, in manipulation, it can have negative connotations. It can, a lot of times when we say manipulation, we mean that in a negative way, but we're constantly manipulating each other through interaction. That's how we communicate. That's interpersonal relations. Is like right now, I'm manipulating you to think about what I'm thinking about by using my words in a certain way, and by making eye contact with you.
Right.
And when you're talking, I do it actively. I nod my head just like you're doing now. We're manipulating each other to create a flow of conversation, and it's a flow of ideas because we use those words as a vehicle for the ideas that are in our brains.
Right.
And so we're constantly doing this with people. We constantly do it with nonverbals too. As a matter of fact, nonverbal communication is way more powerful than verbal. And we don't even realize that, a lot of times. We may not realize our facial expressions and other body language that we're using, how that's actually sometimes negating the actual words that are coming out of our mouths. And so this is constant manipulation that we're doing to each other.
Right.
And we've got to watch the way and try to teach our kids the proper way to manipulate those around them in a positive way through communication.
Right. Yeah.
And you got to do that by tracking the little bastards. They're sneaky.
Gotta track those little bastards.
But anyway, speaking of having confidence, I think we should move on into the kind of the main topic that we had decided we were going to speak of today. I know you've been doing a lot of training, professional training. What would you call it? Professional development training, something like that?
Just like leadership training.
Leadership training.
Yeah.
At your job, which I love. I think that companies who do that, they've got their eye on the ball in a lot of ways, because basically what they're doing is they are grooming the next management potential coming up in the future.
Right.
And they're not starting when we've got an opening, let's train this guy.
Right.
Let's give him a crash course in leadership over the next maybe week if we have time.
Right.
If we're short staffed, then he's going to have to go back on the floor or whatever. They're doing this to groom folks for the future, and I think that's very good foresight to have, very good insight, and I know it comes from experience. And there's a lot of smart people who have come up with those ideas in companies. I don't know. I doubt it was your company per se that came up with this. It was probably years and years ago, but it's been a company development practice strategy for probably a long time. Maybe your company did come up with it. I don't know. Right. Just saying though, it's a very smart idea, and they're bringing a lot of good topics to the table that you and I can discuss as well and unpack.
Yeah, I just think that companies, and I know we've said this before, we've talked about it before, but companies who are looking toward the future are the companies that are going to succeed, I believe. And that doesn't mean the company itself, it means the people that are running the company in all different facets of the entire company. You're going to have people who just come in to work every day. That's all they want to do. They just want to come in, they want to leave, they want to clock in and clock out and go home to their family. Right. That's their work-life balance. Work's important to everybody because it brings in the dollars, but that's, for a lot of people, that's it. That's just what they want to do, and that's what keeps them content in life. And I'm partially there, but I also watch a lot of people, and I also formulate ideas and thoughts in my mind when I see things that happen and how people act and react to situations and stuff like that. And a lot of times, especially when it's management or people that are above me in status in a company that I work for, and I've always been this way. I just see how they react to situations, and I just wonder. I formulate like how I would react to that situation. Would I have done the same thing? And then try to think about what would the outcomes be. So I know what the outcome is of what they just did or what they just said in this situation, and then I try to think about, well, what if I said this, or what if I did this differently? How would that situation have played out? Sometimes you have no idea, because a lot of times it deals with people, and you have to deal with people's reactions to things, right? But when you're a leader or a supervisor or a manager or something like that, you're dealing with people, and a lot of times you have a lot of different personalities you have to deal with. You can't say the same things to one person that you say to another, because they react differently in situations. But somehow you have to form a team with everybody to where everybody, even if they don't get along, they have to be able to work. I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. They have to be able to work side by side with each other, even if they don't necessarily like each other, like each other. And you're going to have that. I think you're going to have different work ethics of people. Some people, and I've been in this scenario before, where I pride myself on being a very hard worker. Okay. If I see people around me that aren't and I'm not saying like every day I'm not saying like every second of every day everybody has to be just busting their ass. I'm not that type of person by any means.
Yeah.
But if there's a lot of work to be done and you have people who are just standing around talking or, whatever, that's an issue. But that's not just an issue from a supervisor standpoint. That's an issue from a company standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
That means that your company is paying people to stand around, but also paying people to bust their ass. You know what I'm saying? So like you have to, I think from a company point of view, you have to look at those things. You have to look at those things too. I'm not saying necessarily fire people or anything like that, but you've got to have at least a clean slate of people all across the board who are at least putting in effort. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
My biggest thing is that if I'm busting my ass and I see people around me that are not, it pisses me off. But what I do when I get pissed off is just work harder.
Right.
That's what I go to. The problem is people see this, but they also see that I'm pissed.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the kind of things that I have to work through. Because it's never really a matter of I'm pissed off directly at somebody. It's more about I'm pissed off at a situation that's happening. And I'm already busting my ass. So now it's just put your head down. Don't worry about everything else around you. Just work harder and you do you and leave.
That's the thing right there. You do you.
Yeah.
Because you also, I'm sure, have the choice to not work as hard as what you're working.
Right.
It's a personal choice that you make. But because of your work ethic, you're going to work hard, and yet it still pisses you off when you see others not working hard.
Yeah.
And I dealt with that a lot because I spent a lot of time in factories as well. And, well, let me ask you about this scenario, because this is something that we would do. Granted, we were a union shop, so we had a lot of leeway, especially back then, I'm talking the late 90s, early 2000s, where we could do things a certain way and kind of get by with it, okay? As long as we were getting the product put out. So what we would do on certain jobs, you had the ability to build up. So you'd work your ass off for 30, 45 minutes, even an hour sometimes, building up that part. Mm-hmm. And then we'd either take turns and take breaks and do whatever we wanted to there for the next hour or whatever, because we would rotate from position to position within a certain department.
Gotcha.
And so when you got to that position, you had the ability, if you choose to, you had the opportunity, if you chose to build up and then use half your time, maybe some more, maybe some less, depending. But you had the ability to go and then do whatever you wanted to. Okay, and some people would get mad about that. They would see us do that, but their preference was to work just a steady stream. It's like, why work my butt off? We got to be here for 12 hours anyway, so I'm just going to do my thing. Well, those guys are over there screwing off. Yeah, but we built this up to be able to screw off at this point in time.
Right.
So, what are your thoughts on that? Would that have pissed you off?
It depends, I guess. So you're saying, would it piss me off if I was in the position of the people who I'm just a steady worker, that I just steadily work 12 hours no matter what? I don't know. That's kind of a tough one, because you can look at it as, well, they put in double, triple the work in that 1 hour than I did.
Yeah.
So they kind of get to do that. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
I mean, everybody, it's a personal choice, though.
Yeah.
We had the ability to work on certain positions within that department. You had to stay there because you were actually assembling the pieces together and you were waiting on the line to come down. We were building truck seats, okay? And so you'd be like putting the bottom to the back of the seat, screwing it in, and it would go to the next guy who'd put on the side shields and handles, yada, yada, and it'd go to the next guy who would bag it up, and it would be lifted onto we were working on the rear seats, so it'd be put on the front seats that were coming down the line. It just sits there and it gets shipped out. Mm-hmm. They would go on the racks and get shipped out later. So there were some positions where you couldn't do that, but the positions back here toward the back, you could build up. Sometimes you could build up if you got if you knew what you were doing, or if you had like a lot of clout in the department, you could stick to one position. You could, hey, you mind if I stay on this position all night? Because some people didn't like some of the jobs.
I gotcha.
So they would be able to skip them.
Uh-huh.
And so if you got on one of those positions, you could build up for the rest of the night and take like the rest of the night off once you got the number of seats, because you could project how many seats you needed. And if you would start to run out of something, you could always come back and do one and fill that one. But then you're just kind of goofing off for the rest of the time,
Gotcha.
doing whatever you want to do. But you built up. You did the same amount of work. You just did it really quickly because you wanted to.
Right.
You
yeah.
know?
Yeah. And I get that. It's not exactly the scenario that I'm painting.
Mm-hmm.
The scenario that I have seen and have talked about is more like people that don't put in a lot of effort
I get
across the board. But I know what you're saying.
Yeah, I get it.
But speaking of that, I look back on it now, and I'm sure you do too. The job where me and you met each other, we did that kind of a thing quite a bit. And I'm not going to name what we were doing or the company or anything like that, but basically what we would do is turn up the line to go extremely fast, to where all of the women at the end of the line would just be bombarded with work,
Yeah.
to where they're not going to catch up by the end of the day. So we can't just keep putting out more work. So we would get to go home early. And we would do that all the time. And the fact that managers never stopped us doing that, we did that a lot.
Yeah.
Like we would leave early a lot of days just because we had maybe 10, 15 people on that line who everybody just kind of looked at each other and said, let's do it. And we just turn everything up, blast out at work for an hour and a half,
Yeah.
and then leave an hour early. And these women were so pissed all the time.
I could imagine if I were in their shoes, I'd be pissed too.
Yeah, I would too.
Because you didn't follow us to the new building. You were already gone.
Yeah.
But there came a time where I slowed stuff down and it didn't cause happy feelings with people on the line.
Who were wanting to get it out fast?
Yes.
Gotcha.
But I slowed it down. And so we had but I already came from, I've been working in factories for a long time up to that point.
Yeah.
I do a lot of the tricks, I knew how to manipulate a line.
Yeah.
To do what I needed it to do. And these guys didn't know what to think about when it came down to it, and I pissed some people off is what I'm getting to.
Yeah.
Because it was a game of chess, and I checkmated them several times. I really wasn't trying to just piss people off, but I was trying to slow it down. I didn't want to. I didn't agree for this. Like it needs to be a unanimous thing. Like if 3 or 4 people think, okay, let's speed up the line so we can get out of here and go home early. You need to make sure it's okay with everybody first.
Right.
And you didn't check with me.
Right.
Not that I'm king dude, but there was not even a vote. They just decided, and so they cranked up the line because they had the line speed. Well, I had the ability to slow it down at the end of the line, by just not taking the next product off of there. Anyway, I eventually started slowing that down because it needs to be like you don't want to screw your neighbor.
Right.
Like kind of what we were doing there for a while to get out. We really were loading those ladies up with work.
Right, but like you said, it needs to be a unanimous decision because as far as jobs go, some people want that 40 hours or however long.
They need that 40
They need
hours.
that 40 hours.
Yeah.
If you have 4 people on a line who want to get out of here an hour early every day, so they want to blast work out, but everybody else wants that 40 hours to work to, help their family live, but those 4 people are going to try to force everybody else out of that time. That's not,
Yeah.
if it's all unanimous and everybody's like, hell yeah, let's get out of here. This day sucks or whatever. I'm fine with that. That's great, But I don't know. I've just the picture I'm trying to paint is more of people who
just aren't doing their fair share.
they just aren't doing their fair share,
Yeah.
and even if they see you, with a lot like a shitload of work that needs to be done, but they don't. Either they don't put in the effort to help you, even though they don't have much work to do, or I don't know. I guess that's that's pretty much the majority of it. Like I hate, even no matter where you are, no matter what job you're doing, if you're doing something, and your neighbor around you doesn't have anything to do or is low on work or something like that, even if they don't know how to do your job, they can help you out somehow. They can come over and they can be like, hey, what can I do? Even if it's something simple things when you're packed full of work can help.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I know what you're saying. And there's a lot of perspective there. There's the perspective that you do you and I'll do me.
Yeah.
And so if you're the type that wants to go help somebody else because you're low on work and otherwise you'd be kind of twiddling your thumbs, that's on you. I grew into this perspective. But if it's the opposite and someone else is twiddling their thumbs and you need help, you also have to go that way as well.
Right.
Not that one way or the other. It depends on that person because it's a personal choice they have to make.
Yeah.
And it's all congruent with their work ethic, right?
Right.
It depends on how they view things. And sometimes people probably don't even. I know when I first started in the factory, when I first started, I was building bicycles, and I was 19 or 20. And then I started my first big job, the union shop job, at 21. And I was still a kid. I didn't have a lot of perspective on what it means to have work ethic in that sense, I guess, because I'd never been in a job where there was so much dependency on another. I never worked on a line before. Let me put it that way.
Yeah.
Except for a sawmill line, but it was different because I was just stacking big gigantic pieces of wood that were cut off trees, slabs, technically. Anyway, so I had to learn and grow, and some people probably still don't have that perspective. Maybe they don't want to, and maybe they're just POS, and they just don't care. Or maybe, once again, they figure, well, if I'm loaded down with work and you don't want to help me, you don't have to either.
Yeah.
And this is me not helping you. So it's fair in that sense,
Well, I think another big thing, though, is the mindset of the people who bust their ass every day when they go. Like, they plan on, when they go to work, they're going to plan on busting their ass. And like, I know this is for me. I sometimes I'll see people who, don't really put in much effort or whatever. And you have two ways you can go with that. You can be like, well, apparently we don't have to put in a whole lot of work around here, so why am I working so hard?
Right.
But then my brain goes to, well, I'll be the one that gets in trouble if I slow down. Why is that? Probably because I busted my ass every day that I've worked here for years. If I slow down, you know what I mean? It's that scenario where the person who busts their ass all the time, if they slow down, it's noticed.
Yeah.
The people who haven't put in effort much at all for years, it's not really going to, I mean, those are the people that get praised. Like the person who doesn't put in much effort, it's noticed when they do put in a lot of effort and they're praised for it. But the person who always puts in effort, if they slow down, now something's wrong, or there's got to be a reason why they're not working as hard anymore, right? And that's not right.
I guess in a sense, you can look at it this way, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe I am. But you were chosen for the leadership training.
True. Yes.
The people who aren't busting their ass at all probably weren't, correct?
True.
So at the end of the day, you are being noticed, but that's not universal, because I know a lot of hard workers do go unnoticed. I saw a post not so long ago, and I'm paraphrasing here to some degree, at least. Maybe I'm butchering the whole thing, but it said, when hard work goes unnoticed and lack of work isn't punished,
right,
you have low morale at the job site, right?
Yeah.
And that's true, and I've seen it happen in a lot of places.
Yeah.
And it's killer. It kills people. You burn your good people out.
Yeah.
And your weak people, they're just the weak people, because you got to have bodies that are doing whatever it is they're doing.
Right.
But in your case, you're being noticed because you're in that leadership training. They've seen your work ethic.
Yeah.
Because that translates as a manager, whatever you're going to do, a supervisor, whatever you're going to do later. That translates into, okay, he's going to expect that from other people as well. See, because there's that trickle down.
Right.
You don't want someone who doesn't have a lot of hard work ethic, not just because they might not get their own job done, but they're not going to have that perspective for other people. They're not going to give them the directive, the motivation they need to get their job done with a lot of gusto, you know. And so you have been noticed. So there is that reward. That's your payoff.
There is that, but then there's the thought of looking towards the future. Say you get put in that position, how do you control that? You know what I mean? Like, say if I was promoted at some point to a supervisor and I have the same situation underneath me, how do I control that same situation that's going on? You know what I mean?
Sure.
And you have to look at it from, I guess, a higher perspective than where you are now. Because now a person can't control it. Like, the person who hasn't been promoted yet can't control it. but at a certain point they could. And how do you do that without making a culture shock for everyone in a department? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think you do have to, even when you're in an elevated position, such as a managerial position, you still have to kind of, I think it's very helpful for you to refer back to your time right now, where you're seeing it on the ground floor, right? Because you have to kind of project back to what it was like being on the floor and working with those people. Because you want to protect your good workers. And I think at the end of the day, when you have a position that has a little more authority, you got some teeth behind it now, then you set some examples. You make some examples, and you see if you shake things up in that place.
Yeah.
You know, you pick the worst one, and you let everybody see, hey, this isn't going to fly. And so you create the paper trail, you start doing the write-ups, you follow through with protocol, and you stick to it. And then by the time you get to that last piece of paper, you know, that last warning, that last write-up, then you let everybody see you walk that person out. Where's so-and-so? Well, he's not here anymore because he wasn't performing like he should have, and he had many warnings. So I hope that all of you all don't follow in those footsteps.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you approach that. But you also remember, I think, to keep the perspective of what it's like to be on the floor.
Yeah,
and
for
so
sure.
and so you try to give that person, I'm sure it's part of protocol with a company that has as much insight as yours. You don't just give them a write-up, you give them counseling, which most companies, I think, do that now anyway. You give them a very clear and direct path to correct their problem, you know, because, okay, you're doing A, B, and C wrong, and we'll be watching A, B, and C to make sure that you improve on those things. And this is how you do it. And if I'm going to give you these tools, and if you need any help, come talk to me. Come talk to somebody.
Right.
Because this is your first warning, and there will be others to follow if you don't correct your errors.
Right.
So I think you'll do fine if and when you do choose to accept such a mission, such a position.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot comes with it.